Hello, you beautiful people from YouTube. It's Vatican here from Weekly Rations, and I'm with you tonight for a Red House Painters retrospective by the fire. So, hello everyone. Red House Painters have always been a favourite band of mine ever since I was 15 or 16, but a young teenager in love in a volatile relationship that lasted a number of years. It was always exciting, it was always drama filled. It's your typical teenage love. And one band that saw me through it was the Red House Painters. Mr. Mark Kozelek, the singer-songwriter, and his band from San Francisco. It's a real cliche, but they're kind of slightly depressing, slightly sad and morbid, but you do come away from it feeling a little cheery and a little better for yourself, probably at Mark Kozek's expense, because obviously he's the one that has suffered. So at the time, the Red House Painters used to be the kind of band that I would turn to after I've had a fight with my girlfriend, so I'd be home and maybe drunk or maybe just pissed off, and I'd put the Red House Painters on, and like, I guess it's a bit like the Smiths or something, one of those bands that as you're coming up through your teenage years that you turn to in your times of need. So they have always had a really special place in my heart, and I've always followed Mark Kozek's career, and the band's career was always quite close to me. I guess in the middle period when Red House Painters broke up or discontinued and he went into his Sun Kil Moon guys, I didn't buy any of their stuff at the time. I guess I was off in the dance music or not buying records or really not listening to him. So for probably 5 or 6 years I certainly left them behind, and then a little while ago came back into my life and have really enjoyed being back into Mark Kozek's career and listening to his music, his solo stuff and the Sun Kil Moon material. So I guess we'll cover that as we go along. So tonight is kind of, I guess, retrospective, a little bit about me, a little bit about the band. I'm certainly no expert, so some of the stuff I say is probably going to be incorrect. I'm not really that kind of a music fan that I know everything about every album and pressings and all that kind of stuff. That's not me. So I'm going to have a little Asahi Japanese beer to go with the first album, which is Red House Painters Down Colourful Hill. So this one's for you, Mark. So the legend goes, how the story goes, that I think this was recorded as a demo funded possibly by, I don't know, Wikipedia, but anyway. So the demo tape was basically that good that the guy that runs 480, Ivor Novello, basically said clean it up and put it out, and it is really, really good. It's quite sparse and slow and down tempoed, and Mark's voice is beautiful on it. So well recorded, so young, and he's tender and just sensitive. It's all those kind of terms you'll hear. If you listen to it, you'll hear it. But for me, it was always kind of, there's still humour comes through in this stuff. Obviously the track Lord Kill the Pain is really hilarious, about basically wishing that God would kill his girlfriend and family members and everybody that makes him feel sad and sore in life. It's quite humorous. It's just beautiful. The last track 6, Michael, is another just hauntingly beautiful song that this man was born to write these types of songs. They just come from him so naturally. So all the early albums were released on 480, the English label, and they've always taken really nice care of their products. So the records are all beautiful. Lovely matte sleeves, stylized, beautiful photography. Always little or no detail on them. So you would have a complete thank you where you expect maybe the band would like to thank and such and all that bullshit that come on records. It's just really downplayed, and you would have had to have searched for material on the band, and I think this album sold really well when it came out, or certainly the follow-up album did. So I think the idea was that this was released quick. I don't know, this is before my time. I certainly didn't hear this when it first came out. I think I first heard the next two when they come out. So these two albums are commonly called Bridge and Rollercoaster, and I believe they're from the same recording sessions. So they cut some stuff from one and put it on the next album. So it must have been a pretty productive session to have produced this double and the next one that comes after it. So Rollercoaster would probably be considered maybe their critical classic. It has, you know, a couple of amazing tunes on it, and it has a lovely thematic flow. So you know, when you start listening to it, you generally don't stop. You will, you know, listen to the whole album and I guess not skip too many songs. And this is not an original copy for me. This is one that I bought then afterwards. I had it on CD, I think. I don't think I ever owned it on vinyl. And maybe 5 or 6 years ago, whenever I got back in with Mr. Kozelek and Red House Painters, I knew that I had to own this. So I probably paid, you know, too much money for it, because at the time they, you know, they hadn't been reissued or whatever. So I probably paid £50 or something for it, which is ridiculous. But when I get back into vinyl 5 or 6 years ago, occasionally I would do something ridiculous like that for a band that I felt, you know, deserved it. So this record has always been close to me. The CD would have been on probably once a week when I was having my teenage girlfriend woes, certainly once a week. And you know, Grace Cathedral Park, New Jersey, Strawberry Hill is a real favourite of mine, Katie's song, Mistress. There's just, I guess, their first greatest hits are definitely on this here, even though it's a cheesy term to use for a band like this, because they're so beautiful. This would probably be a good jumping on point, but it's probably not the first album I would recommend someone listen to as a first time fan. You know, certainly somebody who's not coming from this genre, I would ease them in with something else. So which brings me to the first Red House Painters album that I owned, and this is my copy from when I was 16 or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what year this came out. This is commonly known as Bridge, obviously because of the cover art, and this would be, these are songs that didn't make the last one, I think, because they're quite thematically different. These ones are darker again, they're a bit more like Down Colourful Hill. Some of them are a bit dirge-like, you know. Personally, this is the one I listen to the least, even though it's the one I've owned the longest. It is a wee bit dark sometimes, you know, and slow and heavy, you know. It is a wee bit depressing sometimes. The cover of the Simon & Garfunkel song I Am a Rock is probably the most uplifting part on the whole album. I don't recall anything else getting as uplifting as that. So yeah, it's a great album, but it's the one I listen to the least. And this is my personal copy, so I'm always really chuffed to have that. Then I think, I'm not really sure the exact order of the releases, is the Shock Me EP, which is a Kiss cover, and you'll find that, I guess, from the I'm a Rock cover and this cover of a Kiss song, Mark Kozelek always keen to turn his hand to a cover version, and always does it really, really well. So you might hear, obviously recently, it's quite cool or quite popular to do an acoustic cover version of a popular song, like a Britney Spears song or something. In the UK radio scene, it's always seems to be very popular anyway these days, doing these. Or you'll hear Smith's cover in a John Lewis TV Christmas advertisement from last year. So it's the done thing these days, but Mark Kozelek has been doing that kind of twist on songs for all of his career, and doing them really, really well. He released a couple of cover albums, including a Modest Mouse one, Tiny Cities, which I don't own. That is probably, it was my introduction to Modest Mouse. I'd never heard them before, and the covers are amazing. They're so good, and I so easily then took the leap from Mark Kozek's covers of Modest Mouse to loving Modest Mouse, I guess. So for me, it was great. Trying to keep the momentum going. The next release that I have is Ocean Beach. I think this came out. This was the last 4AD release, I think. So this is a double 10-inch, which is kind of cool, I suppose. Yeah, 2 tunes on each side. So I don't know why a 10-inch was picked for this. Maybe because of the length of the songs or whatever else. And this is a great album. This would be, I personally find this to be a real example of Red House Painters. It's kind of, I guess, when a band has hit their stride and they can write their own sound quite easily. So by this, I guess, 4th album, they were easily writing Red House Painters songs, and you could hear it straight away and know who it is. So you know your partner or something, your friend might walk into the room and say, "Oh, that's Red House Painters." You know, they had their signature sound by then. A couple of covers on here. I think Long Distance Runaround, I think, is a cover. But lovely, some nice, lovely, beautiful, uplifting songs. So you can tell that maybe some of the depressive period has lifted a bit. So there's a song there, Casbon, I can't pronounce it. The first song's really nice. Summer Dress is a lovely, lifting song. But then you'll have a song like Drop at the end, which is just a pure, again, probably drop tuning. I don't know where the name Drop comes from, but pure, slow burning Red House Painters, beautiful tune. I think I might have a rip of that on my YouTube channel somewhere. And then another release after that, which I think is the one that was mired for years. I'm not sure one of these next two was, is Old Ramon, which was eventually released on Sub Pop. You'll have to Wikipedia the story behind what was going on. So this is another double, because you know the Red House Painters, they like their 10-minute songs. Again, a couple of beautiful songs. The first tune, Wappa Din Din, I think is about a cat, as far as I recall, singing about a cat, a little beautiful little love song for our furry friends. I probably don't listen to this an awful lot. You know, I think I remember I had the CD of it, and I remember I used to play it a lot. But I'm not sure if a lot of it has really stuck with me. I don't know, maybe it's just because I now have so many records of Mark Kozek's that, you know, you can't play them all. So off the top of my head, I probably don't listen to this an awful lot, and I can't even remember an awful lot about it. I guess I should have revisited it today when it came on, but at the minute I haven't listened to it in a while, so I'm starting to babble, so I'm going to move on. Now, this is a record that I always kind of introduce people to Red House Painters with, because I think it's a great introduction, and you're going to get a little bit of all of their styles on this record. You may have heard it yourself. I think the tune Have You Forgotten was used in Vanilla Sky movie a few years ago. So I'm sure you got a wee bump in sales or a wee bump in popularity based on that. So again, this is one I had on CD and I picked up on vinyl. Most of the recent stuff I picked up in the last sort of 5 years, because I always had on CD during the naughty 90s when nobody was buying records. So I saw this and I had to get it. This was the blue vinyl edition, because I am a sucker for coloured vinyl, and blue's nice, and the price was fine. It wasn't exactly terribly expensive. It was probably £5 or £10 more than it would have been on release. So a great album. So Songs for a Blue Guitar is beautiful. Have You Forgotten is beautiful. Silly Love Songs, another cover, really, really good. I Feel the Rain Falls, upbeat. Long Distance Runaround, all mixed up, is a classic, you know, deep and long and slowly building Red House Painters tune. So yeah, if you want to come on board with Red House Painters, it's probably best to start, I think, at the last one. I'm not sure the exact order of the last couple of albums. So come on board with Songs for a Blue Guitar. Alright, Just had to readjust myself there. I was getting a little bit too hot by the fire. Don't want that vinyl to melt. After the Irish Painters broke up, or Mark Kozelek had enough, whatever happened, he went under a new guise, which was Sun Kil Moon, I think, a boxer, the name was inspired by, as well as, I guess, some solo stuff. And I think the last record I bought, well, it would have been on CD, again, that bastard in CDs, would have been this one, which was reissued there a little, or issued on vinyl for the first time maybe a little while ago, which was Rock and Roll Singer, and it's a set of AC/DC acoustic covers, and obviously I'm an AC/DC fan like most people, probably not the biggest fan, but you know, I like them, and these versions are just amazing, they really are. So completely, it's a knack for completely transforming these pub rock anthems to something beautiful and tender, you know, and Bon Scott's, and I think they're all mostly, maybe there's a couple of Brian Johnson era songs on there. I'm not sure. I think they're all earlier Bon Scott era. There's quite a certain depth and a certain like pain and beauty comes through from those lyrics and those tunes when he does. Mark Kozelek does his cover versions of them. So I had this on CD from back in the day, and then he released What's Next to the Moon, which is re-recordings of some of these AC/DC songs and some additional ones. So I guess either this sold well, or someone came to him and said, oh, you know, can you make full length instead of an EP out of this? I'm not really sure the story, but it's funny when you hear these versions of the songs that are on these ones, they're not quite as good, and I don't know why. Maybe that's just because it's your typical, the first time you hear something and you fall in love with them, you know. So I heard these first, thought they were beautiful, heard them on this, and I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound right. But that's just maybe your ears having those expectations. So after this, at some point, he released the Modest Mouse covers EP called Tiny Cities, which is definitely on my want list, but is unfortunately about 60 quid, and I'm not going to do that, sadly. I would love to have it as well, but the Modest Mouse ones are again beautiful, acoustic derived covers, and they're beautiful. Got a couple of live albums. This came out a couple of years ago, live in the Ilco, which is in Italy. So this was 2014, so it has obviously some of his newer material, some of his older materials, a lot of the Sun Kil Moon tunes on there, so it's good. And then this one came out not that long ago, a couple of months ago, live in Copenhagen, and I think this was recorded 2012, yeah. So it has some nice older tunes on there as well that people like to hear live. So I did see him live then. He played here in Bangor in Northern Ireland a couple of years ago, not 2 years ago, as part of the open house festival out there, and it was brilliant. It was a brilliant gig. So happy to finally saw him play live, and he had the full band, and he was in a good mood. The atmosphere was amazing. I had passed on an opportunity to see him twice, I think, in Belfast, including the notorious night that he complained about, the night in Belfast. He did release a Live in Belfast EP on CD a couple of years ago, but I did hear that there was a bad night with bad sound or bad crowd or whatever that he complained about a good few years ago. But I wasn't either. Maybe didn't even know about the gig at the time, or I can be a bit funny sometimes. I just don't go to live gigs, or get bored or whatever. So anyway, saw him a couple of years ago. He was brilliant live. A really good night. I think the whole room was enthralled to his humour. He was in a funny mood. So that's good. Another release. I got this after Christmas last year, which is Mark Kozelek Sings Christmas Carols. So it's still sealed because I think I bought it in January and I didn't see the point in opening up. So I'd probably give it a wee spin in the next couple of weeks because we're in November now. So I'm looking forward to hear it. I presume it's going to be acoustic interpretations and done in his usual droll manner. I don't know what it's like. I haven't heard it. I don't even think I've read any reviews of it. What do you think of my fire? It's looking lovely and warm, isn't it? It's toasty here, toasty, but it's not freezing. It's probably overkill for a mid-November night. We talked a bit about Sun Kil Moon. So after Red House Painters had broken up, I had totally tuned out then of what was going on in Mr. Kozelek's world. So Ghosts of the Great Highway, the one after it, oh, the names are escaping me now, sorry, I've had a couple of beers. But there were certainly 3 or 4 albums released. April, that was the next one. 3 or 4 albums released before I kind of even realised that he was still putting out music. So I had missed their physical releases, I had missed any hype about them or whatever else. So I have went back and listened to them, and there's a couple of great albums there, and a couple of great albums that he hasn't even released on vinyl. I think it's the Desert Shore one that I streamed a year or 2 ago. It's really good, but I don't even think it has a physical release yet on vinyl. The prices of them are ridiculous. So Ghosts of a Great Highway, I think, is like nearly £200 or something on vinyl. I don't know, something ridiculous. So there's no danger of me buying that or falling for that trap and spending a ridiculous amount of money for a Kozelek record. I've done it in the past, as we know, with the Rollercoaster record. So hopefully they'll get a re-release, and I'll certainly pick them up. The 1 or 2 of those Sun Kil Moon albums I remember being a tiny bit boring towards the end, but just where I was coming back on, he brought out Benji, which is probably the most talked about record he's done since his career started, I would imagine. So and if you're a fan, you know all about this record, and if you're not a fan, you probably know about it. So this seemed to be a renaissance or a reinvention of the Mark Kozelek sound to a certain extent. So I guess to sum it up, basically it's almost like he has become stream of consciousness style writer. So it's Jack Kerouacian visions about his daily life, just streamed out, kind of with next to no editing. So there's a bit of shouting and growling going on at times. There's a lot of introspection. There's a lot of analysis on him and who he is and his relationships with people. Whereas I guess in the older stuff, or in your more traditional song writing style, you know, it's an analogy, or it's, you know, no one's named. It's a love song, but someone's rarely ever named, or, you know, you have to investigate and interrogate the lyrics to try and work out what they're talking about. In this case, Mr. Kozelek is telling you exactly what's happening, because it's basically his life in the months either coming up to this record or something that's happened to him in his past, and he is just putting it out there, letting there no editing. And for me, it really, 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 really worked. I love this album. I think it's a almost fair to say a masterpiece. It really is. Partly because the music on it, the band that he has, including Steve Shelley from Sonic Youth on drums, are really, really, really good. So musically, it's really fun to listen to. It's really enjoyable on your ears. It's very interesting. And then Mark's just on there giving it fucking everything. He just doesn't care. So Ben's my friend. The tune towards the end is just about going to see a gig with, what do you call the guy of the postal service, and just how that night worked out, and how complaining about having to walk up a hill, and where he went for dinner, and the more obvious ones, Carissa is a story about an aunt of his dying in a fire. 2 beautiful songs, I Can't Live Without My Mother's Love and I Love My Dad. Really interesting to have that 2 sides, you know, of each of his parents, giving them the time to tell the story, like, I guess the bit of their history together, and his thoughts about them now. Dogs is about his first sexual experience. It's a complicated record in respect, and it's probably hard to get into. Now, my wife is a fan of Red House Painters and Mark Kozelek, and she hates it. She can't deal with the change, and it's probably because of his vocal delivery. You could probably say it's almost lazy. He's a wee bit screamy, a bit shouty, and a bit mumbly. And, like he's reading from his diary and stuff. It's not. He doesn't really sing an awful lot, if that makes sense. So I can understand that she doesn't like it, but I'm surprised that it hasn't grown on her. I've liked it from the first song I heard. I just went, oh, he's reinvented himself to a certain extent. So I had to have this, really had to have this, and I was so excited to get this. One of the lovely orangey sort of colours. You actually should take it out because it's a lovely piss colour. And it's not one of his cheapy releases. It is quite a nice release with the lyrics there, and it's a nice double vinyl heavy 180 or whatever. So he hasn't cheaped on that. So this for me, I guess, would be the second jumping on point. So if you've liked songs for a blue guitar, this should probably be your next release to see where he's at now as opposed to where he was 15 or so years ago. So he then followed that up with Universal Themes, which to be honest is a wee bit more of the same. So it's the same kind of vocal delivery and the same kind of stream of consciousness. This is now what's happened in my life, a year later, as well as some other stories. So it's probably got a wee bit of criticism when it first came out for being more of the same, but it's still really good. I think this is the black vinyl. Yes, it's black. It's still a really good album, and it has every right to be there in his catalogue. And I would go to it nearly just as much as I would go to Benji. Probably just as much because Benji I kind of played out. I listened to it a bit too much. So and there's some really some great songs on there, but they're maybe a wee bit deeper and a wee bit rhythmically. The band's even tighter again and prefer to get a wee bit darker and stuff. Yeah, the songs are probably allow their groove to go a wee bit more, as opposed to just mark constantly stream of consciousness over the top. So a great record that I do recommend. And then I think his latest release then is a different collaborations with Sun Kil Moon and Mark Kozelek, but he released with a guy called Jesu, and this is more noise. So obviously my wife hates this, as opposed to not liking Benji. She hates this. Took me a wee while to warm up to it because it is noisy, and not like Ministry or one of those kind of bands, but it's that kind of distortion-ish sort of sound. But the thing that I like about this record is the quiet, beautiful songs. They're really good. So the guy Jesu sometimes leaves the distortion pedals behind and produces more ambient almost pieces, and with lovely wee kind of melody lines running through it, and those songs are truly beautiful. I think it's the one there, Father's Day is one that jumps out to me, and Beautiful You and stuff. They're really, really quiet, but not in the old Red House Painters, voice was at the forefront. They're still musically really interesting. So it may be a hard one to get into, but it actually has its rewards. It's worth listening to, and I think they've already written a follow up to it that's due out next year. So I am looking forward to that. So that just about covers it. The last thing I was going to show was the Red House Painters 480 box set. I just kind of wish I had waited a little bit. Whenever I was rebuying the original pressings, and probably spent a little more than I should have, of course they must have had some kind of repressing in mind, because the price that they were going for. So last year, I think it was Record Store Day 2015 or 2014, they released a box set then of all the 480 releases, and of course I had to have a copy, even though by that stage I already owned them all on original pressing. I think this is my jump. This was my jumping the shark part moment for having to buy original pressings of stuff. At that stage I realised, you know, I've probably gone too far here. You know, you get caught up with it. Oh, I have to have this on the original. I have to have this on the original. This came out during my lifetime. This was something that I had, you know, and I was part of, and then I got them, and then I still went ahead and bought the fucking reissues. You know, I was like, what am I doing? But I had to have it because it was in that collector frame of mind that sometimes you get when you buy records. Like, you know, most of the time I can control that urge to have something, but not all the time. But I suppose, you know, obviously I had the cash at the time, so, you know, I must have been able to afford it. But the thing is, it is still sealed. I did scrape the box though. It is still sealed. So, you know, do I open it? They're all, I think, on like a lovely bronze covered vinyl, and the Ocean Beach is a 12 inch instead of a 10-inch version. I'm not even sure, I can't remember now if there's anything else in there. I guess maybe a book or something. So, like, you know, do I open it? Do I enjoy it? Do I keep it on the shelf? Do I sell it? That's just one of those things as collectors we have to question every once in a while. So for now it'll probably just go back in the box because I don't need to open it. I have everything. Maybe on a rainy day if I need cash or something I could sell it. I don't know. But it's a beautiful box, as you can see. And they did re-release them all individually as well for like 20 quid or whatever. So, you know, most people were able to pick up what they wanted, which was probably Rollercoaster and Down Culver Hill, if I'm honest. You know, that's probably the ones that would have been the hardest to get. So here's hoping that the early Sun Kil Moon records all get a re-release, and then I'll be happy. Because I am not buying any of those because they're far too expensive. Anyway, that's the box set. And I'm sorry you can't see it. I'm almost tempted to open it for you. Who knows, maybe if I get loads of people in the comments saying, open it, open it, open it, maybe I will. Probably not. So, that brings me to a close. So, my favourite Sun Kil Moon album is Benji. My favourite Red House Painters album, is probably Rollercoaster, but I do skip a couple of songs on it. So if you're not going to skip, I would say Down Culver Hill, because there's only 6 songs. But if you want to listen to the first time, try Songs for a Blue Guitar. Alright everybody, that's enough love for the cause. I'm sure you know about it by now. Thanks for watching.